Welcome back to another DKKS movie breakdown. I am Charlie Cannon.
My name's Ian F. Scott.
And we are DKKS Productions. And this is Woola Boggs. Why don't you tell them what we're breaking down for them today?
Today we are breaking down one of my favorite films from childhood and everybody's favorite 1978 film, Superman, the movie.
That's right. We are delving into a genre which we have been very excited to step into. I would say the superhero genre is one of the most popular genres in the past 50 years, probably the most popular in the last 10 to 20 years, I would argue. And this is the film that really started it all, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
This was made in a time that a lot of superhero movies weren't being done. There had been the serials from the 40s and 50s of, Batman and Superman in the 1960s Batman show and movie, but this one really kind of launched what the superhero genre became. So
yeah,
I'm really excited to be going back to like the root of everything.
Yeah, the cinematic experience of just something as grandeur as this. I even told him when we were watching it recently, I said, yeah, this, can you imagine being a comic book fan watching this in the theaters? It's groundbreaking. I'm super stoked to talk about it. She's super stoked to talk about it.
I'm not stoked.
Nobody gives a shit.
Oh yeah, I forget.
All right. So I'm ready to go and hop into this bad boy.
Let's do it. So as always, grab a drink, grab a cigar, and buckle the F up, Buttercup.
So what are we drinking on tonight? Ketone?
Tonight we are drinking High West Double Rye Whiskey from Park City, Utah.
Absolutely.
What are your thoughts about the bottle?
I'm excited. I think that it's a cool little label. I've never heard of High West whiskey, so the taste might be a tad questionable. But we're gonna be sipping on it. It's gonna be a lot easier to sip than rum or tequila. So I'm excited for that. So definitely.
Let's go ahead and
Oh yeah, get that.
pour it out.
Get that. So the pop isn't much there right now. I accidentally popped it when I was taking the plastic off. Maybe try it again. Yeah, see if you can.
Okay, there was actually a little bit.
Yeah, that was a little bit.
All right, we're gonna pour some shots here. Shots. All right, now that we have poured these shots, let's have a sniff.
First, yes. That actually smells
It's
pretty
very
damn good.
It's pretty easy on the nose,
Yeah.
so it's not like assaulting you as soon as you
Yeah, exactly.
get it. So
shall we go ahead and just jump right in? As all coaches do, push them in the water, and I'm gonna pour these little shots of whiskey right down our little throats. All right, whatever. All right.
To Superman.
To Superman.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God, that's still burning. It's
Still
crazy.
burning. It tasted good. It was good. It was just burns like a bitch.
The burn is strong enough to the point where I'm absolutely terrified to be sipping on this throughout the video. But hey, what would Superman do? He'd man up. He would drink the entire bottle. All right, so that's what we'll be sipping on today. The cigar of choice for this evening. We have some Romeo y Julieta cigarros. The reason I chose these is they were available. I went to look for these on my lunch break today, and it was very hard to find cigars. But also, growing up, my uncle and my aunt worked at a cigar shop, and they used to bring us some memorabilia. We had a memory box that had Romeo and Juliet on it. So when I saw this, it kind of threw me back a little bit. I got a tad nostalgic. Let's take a. Smells like tobacco, and pretty much nothing else.
I second it.
Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and cut these up. We're going to pour our drinks, and we're going to talk about some Superman. Listen, I'm not going to be as sauce as I was at the end of the fucking...
Well, we also drank an entire bottle.
Yeah, by the end of it, I was like, dude, we are rambling like nothing else. I was like, editing that was such a fuck.
Because it's Superman, it's just how it sounds.
Is this the same dude that did the James Bond and the Batman?
Yeah.
I forgot about those. me one hot
Okay. Let's do it. So we are all set. We have our drinks, we have our cigars, and we are ready to delve into this movie. So before we kind of get into the breakdown part of this, I just want to talk a little bit about Christopher Reeve and how much I respect him as an actor, but really how much I respect him as a person. Christopher Reeve was really the first celebrity I can remember looking up to as a kid, and he was always been a hero of mine, not just because he played Superman, but because of who he was in real life. It is very well known about his accident that left him paralyzed completely from the neck down for like the last 10 years of his life. But you know what he has done for the community of disabled people, and what he has done really for the advancement of stem cell research has been incredible. I mean, even 15 years after his death, his legacy and his foundation that he created with his wife really kind of got the ball rolling in terms of regeneration of stem cells so people can walk again, and it has happened. So I think, just he could have, it would have been very easy for him to, look at himself in that condition and be like, I can't do anything.
Right.
I'm my life is ruined. But he rolled with the punches, went and bettered humanity, and I think he really found his calling in life when he did that. And his wife was by his side the whole time, and she said at one point he was like, maybe it would just be better if you let me go, maybe it should just be better if I'm not here. And she said, it's your life and it's your decision, just give me 2 years and see what we can do. She is just as much of a hero as Christopher Reeve was. So for anyone out there who is ever wondering if Superman could really exist in real life, the answer is yes, and his name is Christopher Reeve. So,
Seriously.
right off the bat, to Christopher Reeve, rest in peace, sir. God bless you.
Sir. And I'm sure we'll talk about Christopher Reeve a little bit more later as well. But he was a genuinely good human being.
He was.
And I feel like that is not only physically, I mean, he looks like Superman, but in his heart, I feel like he definitely brings those qualities as well. Yeah. So Christopher Reeve, definitely the man.
It's the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation.
Right.
So if you want to learn more, or if you are feeling generous and want to donate, I'll throw a link into the description. You can do that. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about the acting in this movie, because it's really kind of like a powerhouse film when it came to actors at the time. A rather disappointing performance in the movie, and it's actually from Marlon Brando, who is an acting hero of mine, because he's incredible and he's one of the most well-known actors, especially of his time. But he was very well known for being difficult to work with, straight up not memorizing his lines, and having production assistants have to find places on set to put the pages so he can read the lines while he was on camera, which is lazy and it's unbecoming of an actor, because I mean, through learning your lines you have to build a character, and that's really how you develop this character in this world. And Marlon Brando just really didn't do that. He does a great job as Jor-El, because I mean, he's just naturally talented, and he has that regal kind of look and sound to his voice. But really, compared to Marlon Brando from The Godfather and Brando from On the Waterfront or Streetcar Named Desire, it's just really, really disappointing.
So yeah, I guess it was a few years ago, probably not even a few years ago now, probably like 7 or 8 years ago now, that I discovered that in filming this movie, he had somebody off screen with like cue cards with his lines on them. And automatically, as actors, you can't respect something like that. That just shows not only you didn't show the effort to learn your lines, that alone shows enough that you didn't put any effort into the character yourself, but like itself. So to me, he does come off as very regal, but that's very Brando. He comes off as very Marlon Brando to me.
Very, very much so.
In fact, I think I even said when we were watching it last time, I really appreciate Russell Crowe's performance as Jor-El in Man of Steel, because I feel like he put maybe not his full effort into it, But I mean, it clearly shows that he put work into this. There's a lot more that comes into playing Jor-El in Man of Steel than in Superman, and it's just disappointing to hear of that. This guy that I look up to in every aspect of the industry, he let me down with this one. But if I hadn't known that watching this, I wouldn't have really any faults with the performance.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so. I mean, he does well, but he could have done so much better, and I think that's just, something as an actor. I don't want to leave anything, on. I don't want to leave anything on the table. I just want to, kill the performance. So seeing that is kind of disappointing. We're going to talk about Mario Kidder as Lois Lane. Lois, I think she really did a really good job of, especially back then, being a strong, standout female performance in a role where she goes out and gets her story, gets what she wants, and she's not going to let anybody stand in her way. And I think I think she does a really good job of bringing that to life. She really does a good job of making Lois a sarcastic, kind of humorous character while also being very serious in the parts where she needs to be serious and being able to switch off between those two very easily. So I think she does a really great job as well.
So in 1978, you're not really seeing roles for women being written with much depth, especially in the superhero genre, which we mentioned wasn't much of a thing before this, besides like the Adam West Batmans and maybe a few other things. This was the first blockbuster superhero film. It'd be really easy for the writers and for everybody involved in the project to write Lois Lane as just another damsel in distress who falls in love with the main character. There's a bit more to her, and they do a lot of things in this film to show that. The soliloquy when she's flying, it's strange. It's very weird.
It is. It's very 70s.
But it shows a lot. It puts you inside of her mind. And you see, there's just a lot of moments throughout this film where you get to really see the depth in the character that is Lois Lane. And Lois Lane, personally, as a comic book fan, is one of my favorite non-superhero characters in comics. I think she's a badass.
Yeah, she also adds a whole nother level to Superman and therefore to the world. And so I think, Lois Lane has to be cast as a strong actress. Right. And I think they killed it, again, with Amy Adams as Lois Lane in Man of Steel.
I agree, yeah, because this is a guy that, he's a god, essentially. This man could have any woman on planet Earth that he wants, and he chooses Lois Lane for a reason, and the actress responsible for bringing that reason across on screen needs to be able to deliver, and I feel like Margot Kidder,
yeah,
I feel like she did.
Absolutely. So, well done, and I want to talk a little bit about Gene Hackman as Lex Luthor, because I think he does a wonderful job of bringing the egotistical, self-centered, very lack of humility in his performance as Lex Luthor is exactly what I think Lex Luthor needs to be. Gene Hackman made Lex Luthor this, I am the best of the best. If any criminal mind was going to think of something, it would have been me, so it can't possibly be done. He comes up with this elaborate plan to end Superman. And, he barely breaks a sweat while doing it. Right. And all the while, he's putting up with Otis, who's this bumbling oaf.
Man, that character in general.
Somehow he is so patient with him, literally screwing up everything. So it's very funny. Gene Hackman is a great actor, and he's one of those golden time actors who's very, very embedded in building the world and building the character, and you can see that in all of his performances. But I love his performance as Lex Luthor.
I agree. I think it's iconic. I think the character of Lex Luthor alone is, I would put him in my top 3 comic book villains of all time. I think directly behind the Joker and Magneto. I think that's where he rests. I think that there's something about the fact that you have the most powerful hero of all time, essentially. I mean, when you're not thinking about... Don't get picky in the comments when I say that shit, also. Superman is the most powerful hero in all of comic book history, in my opinion. Superman is the most powerful mainstream superhero of all time. It makes so little sense to make his arch nemesis a regular human being that it makes sense. If that makes any sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I know.
So there's something about taking this guy with no powers, only his intelligence, to make him the greatest rival of Superman of all time. Not only to do that, but to write him well and to portray him well is an incredible feat, in my opinion. And Gene Hackman, of course, like as I said, it's iconic. He does a great job. His confidence, his intelligence, everything comes across very naturally and without any question, really. When he's saying something on screen, you believe it.
Yeah.
And I think it's an A+ performance. And also, I want to give a shout out to Kevin Spacey again for his portrayal of Lex Luthor in Superman Returns, which is supposed to be a continuation of this film. And shout out to not Jesse Eisenberg. I don't know what the hell happened there, but, we'll move on.
There were choices made, and they were not the right choices, but good on you for trying.
But Gene Hackman, absolutely fantastic job.
Okay, now let's get into the good stuff.
Yep.
Christopher Reeve, who, I think just absolutely embodies, the essential Superman. Everything Superman is, Christopher Reeve really brought it to the table, and the casting could not have been better. And he had a lot of stuff working against him from the get-go because he was an unknown actor from Juilliard, who he roomed with Robin Williams, fun fact.
Mm-hmm.
But he was an unknown actor, and I'm pretty sure his natural hair color was blonde, or much lighter hair than black. The jet black hair that Superman, the jet black hair that Superman is supposed to have. And producers did not like him, but Richard Donner really convinced the producers to give this guy a shot. I really believe in this guy. So shout out to Richard Donner because I don't fucking know. Shout out to Richard Donner because the casting of Superman was done incredibly well. Now let's get to why Christopher Reeve is such a good Superman. Because Clark Kent and Superman are two completely different characters. Mm-hmm. There's always that debate between who was the best actor that did Bruce Wayne and Batman. Because it's a popular opinion, Michael Keaton's the best Bruce Wayne, while this other actor's the best Batman.
Right.
And then there's, it's an argument amongst comic book fans, but everyone can agree that Chris Reeve was the best Clark Kent and the best Superman. No disrespect to Henry Cavill.
Right. Or the guy that played him on Smallville. I can't even think of his name. Tom Welling. Yeah, I thought that he did a great job with Clark.
Yeah, but Christopher Reeve just absolutely murders it. And there's one scene in particular where I really want to talk about. It's a scene when, spoiler alert, 2 nuclear weapons detonate on opposite ends of the country, and Superman stops one, and he turns around to stop the other, but it's already impacted the San Andreas Fault. So there's a major earthquake, and half of California is going to fall off into the sea, and that's where Lois is at the time. So he gets back down there in time to try to save her, but of course he's too late. And the acting that Chris Reeve does in that moment. But it could have been one of those things where it's very one-dimensional, fall into the trap of just lamenting, sobbing over her dead body, and then slowly getting angry and having that transition from the sad face to the very, very angry face and flying up. But Chris Reeve, he kind of does it like he's in disbelief for a split second, and then turns to immediate rage, where he's so mad that he can't help but to cry. It's from disbelief to, building rage, the slow, the immediate transition in his eyes to absolutely furious. He screams and flies off. Mm-hmm. And then the scene that follows where he has the voice of his birth father, Jor-El, telling him that it's forbidden to interfere with human history, and the voice of his father that raised him, Jonathan Kent, telling him that he was sent there for a reason. So he has that internal struggle. And for the first time, Superman has to choose between what he knows is right and what is essentially wrong, because he knows that going back to save Lois is going to be, in a way, kind of selfish, because he doesn't want to experience life without her.
Right.
So he has that moment where he has to say, okay, I'm going to go save Lois. I'm going to defy my birth father and do what I know I can do. And then he flies around the world and turns back time, which is the most accurate representation of how time travel would really work. But and then he gets back down, and she's fine, and she's alive, and he lands, and the way he greets her is so innocent and pure and kind of like boyish.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's just like so happy she's alive, and he doesn't really know what to say, but comes up with something kind of cute, in my opinion. I was watching it, kind of made me smile. And she kind of goes on about, she was like, there's never a Man of Steel when you need one, and I've been doing all this, and where were you? And he's just kind of like laughing. He's like, you were dead 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
So,
He doesn't toot his own horn or anything about
right.
it. Yeah.
But it's just really great. Chris Reeve really turned the role of Superman into the most lovable, pure guy you can think of.
Yeah.
And when he's Clark Kent, he's completely different. He's shorter because he slouches over, and he's very, very geekish. And the scene when he's in Lois's apartment where he like kind of transforms from Clark to Superman by just straightening up and lowering his voice and becoming more confident. It's just like the levels he plays with in that scene are really, really great. And that's why I love Christopher Reeve as Superman.
Yeah, so real quick, a short insert. We are filming this outside on my little balcony porch thing. It is so hot out here, and it was in the Usual Suspects video too. Surely you've noticed some dark spots on both of our shirts. So just bear with it, alright? Deal with it. We're dealing with it. You're going to have to deal with it because you're watching. We appreciate that. So now, I want to talk about the character of Superman a little bit. The character of Superman. There's a scene in Kill Bill Volume 2 where Bill says to the bride, the thing that makes Superman different from the other heroes is, let's reference Batman, for example. Batman's alter ego is Bruce Wayne. Aquaman's alter ego is Arthur Curry. And then he says, but Superman, Clark Kent's alter ego is Superman. You know, kind of saying that Superman is his true self and he disguises himself. I feel like that's complete nonsense. I think that at his core, Superman is Clark Kent. You know, he is this incredible alien with all this power. He's essentially a god amongst men, but at his core, he's very much a man himself. He's very human. He's very innocent. He was raised by Ma and Pa Kent and on this small little farm in Kansas. And I think that really shows through not only with Clark Kent, but also with Superman. And I think that Christopher Reeve did a great job expressing this. You see it in several scenes. You see it in the alleyway scene when he catches the bullet and he kind of just like sheds it off. Sure, he adds like a little awkwardness and nerdiness to it that maybe is additional, like covering himself, like making sure the Superman side of him's not exposed or anything like that. But at his core, he is Clark Kent, and Superman is his alter ego. Just because he has all these powers doesn't make him not a human, and just because he's not a human doesn't make him not a human, if that makes any sense. He is very human, and I think Christopher Reeve did a great job of bringing that across, and it really shone through in the film.
For sure. Part of the reason why I think Superman is such a popular character is because he's so human, even though he's from a different planet. Because, you know, Superman is a true down to like home superhero.
Yeah.
He was raised by humans, therefore he has that very strong human connection.
Yeah, and all the more like morals and values that a human would have.
Yeah, really the only kind of, I guess, Kryptonian thing about Superman is the fact that, you know, he gets more power from the sun than any human would.
It's like I feel like he himself considers himself a human, which is why he feels this responsibility to protect the human race. And, you know, Pa Kent says that he was sent here for a reason. He views his reason as to stand up for the American, not only the Americans, to stand up for the human race, because he has these abilities. I hate to use a Spider-Man quote, with great power comes great responsibility. He recognizes this and he uses it for good. I don't think there's a single human on this planet that can use these powers as efficiently and as responsibly as Clark Kent, who is the most ideal human you can get. Pure heart, all-around good person, and Christopher Reeve did a great job at making that shine through, and it's a performance that will stand through for generations.
For sure, and I think that's because Christopher Reeve brought so much of himself, of like that pureness of
Right.
himself to the character, and that's really why the casting stands out for him specifically. Another great moment of the movie, I think one of the best moments, is when the first appearance of Superman,
Right.
when he sees Lois hanging out of the helicopter that's hanging off the side of the building, and he flies up as she's falling, and he catches her, and that very sweet and pure easy, miss, I've got you, and he starts flying up, and everyone's cheering, and then the helicopter falls down, and everyone is immediately terrified again. They're like, oh my god, this guy can't possibly like save us all from this helicopter that's about to fall on us, especially since we're standing right underneath it like some dumbasses.
And we refuse to move.
So kind of like Americans that won't wear masks through the coronavirus. Shout out. The helicopter starts to fall, and you just see a slight grin appear on Superman's face, because he's just like, easy peasy, I got this. Catches it, and they're all cheering again, and he starts flying up and sets it down. And there's a great scene just between Margot Kidder and Christopher Reeve there on the roof.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just the subtle nod to the comics when he runs past the like telephone
booth,
but it's not really a booth anymore, so it's like that subtle nod to the comics of when Superman used to go find the phone booth to change into a Superman costume. Great little Easter egg that I think you would kind of see in today's superhero movies.
Right.
So
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's just a really nice little Easter egg.
Yeah, I feel like there's not enough positive things to say about Christopher Reeve or of his performance, and I feel like even throughout the rest of this video, we'll probably be talking about it a little bit more. But
Absolutely.
For now, shall we?
Yep.
Raise a toast
To Christopher Reeve, Margot Kidder, Gene Hackman, and even Marlon Brando, and to everyone else who brought this movie to life. Cheers to you.
Cheers to you. Alright, so let's talk about directing a little bit. So this film was directed by a man named Richard Donner. Have you ever heard of Richard Donner before?
I feel like I may have once or twice in passing, and
Sure. And then just
cinema
forgot
history
about it.
in school
Yeah.
or something.
So Richard Donner is a director that also directed The Goonies, which we've spoken about on a previous show, and which actually I believe I spoke about Richard Donner in, a fair amount in that one. But just for those of you who didn't see the Goonies video, go watch it real quick. And then he directed The Goonies, which is one of our favorite films of all time. He also did films such as Lethal Weapon and Superman. Now, I want to focus mainly on what he does in Superman because I think it's an incredible achievement. In fact, I would say my favorite Richard Donner film is still The Goonies, but there's something to be said about directing the first superhero blockbuster of all time. And as I mentioned kind of earlier, this film isn't just a superhero blockbuster. This is an epic. You see from the very early times on Krypton with Superman to when he's sent away to when he's, found in Kansas, when Pa Kent dies, when he moves to Metropolis, when he gets his job at the Daily Planet, when he meets Lois Lane, when he first has his first appearance as Superman, when he first meets Lex Luthor. There's just so much that happens in this film that, if you're reading the comics and you were trying to find the storyline, it would take 45 issues. So there's something about condensing this into a film and making it work that really, I feel like, speaks testament to the talent that Richard Donner possesses. And another thing is, you're directing a film in the 1970s with a guy who flies and has all these incredible powers and stuff. How do you possibly bring this to life? I feel like he found a really good way to do so. I'm not saying the special effects were impressive by any means, maybe for the time.
For the time, absolutely.
But he did a great job at making it feel realistic, making it really hit home, and just like The Goonies, it's a film that kind of touches your heart in a sense. It makes you feel good about yourself.
Yeah.
So, shout out to Richard Donner once again. You have a knack for being good. So, shout out to Richard Donner once again. You have a knack for creating these films that just, bring a sense of life to the atmosphere and whichever, and however we're viewing it. It makes me feel good. So, respect to Richard Donner. You have a knack for doing films that kind of bring across that sort of tone and that overall vibe when it comes to how we're feeling when we're watching it. So, Yeah, I thought he did a great job. What did you think of Richard Donner's directing in this film? And I also, real quick actually, I want to point out also how difficult it is to capture an atmosphere, but especially when you have several different atmospheres. Because in this film, you have the atmosphere on Krypton, you have Kansas, and you have Metropolis. And then, of course, you have the whole thing that happens at the end. But I feel like he did a really good job of capturing that and bringing that to life as well.
Absolutely. I think the scope of this movie for the time was incredibly ambitious.
Almost unheard of.
Yeah. Like Star Wars had just come out the year before, and that really kind of changed the way people looked at cinema.
Right.
And so when you have a beloved comic book movie, or like a beloved comic book series that's about to be adapted into a movie, I mean, the stakes are high.
Right.
As it is, but with the cinematic achievement that Star Wars was,
right.
I mean, there was a lot. I'm assuming there's probably a lot of pressure on the studio to deliver, and Richard Donner really just hit a home run. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, there are shots in the movie that, like you see today, they're more well done because of the use of special effects, and probably the more agile cameras that we have today, that as opposed to the big, bulky Panavision ones of the time. But he really found ways to make it. I think there's some parts of the movie that really hold up to this day. Sure, they're dated. Sure, you can see the age in them. But I think a lot of filming techniques that he used really kind of evolved into a lot of what we see today.
Right.
Especially for superhero movies. So I think it's just really well done, and that has a lot to do with cinematography as well.
I agree, and I want to say that I feel like Richard Donner knew the effects that he had. I feel like he knew that they weren't the most impressive or realistic sort of things, so he found ways to kind of work around that. So there's no point in the film. Well, I mean, there are several points in the film where you're like, that doesn't look real, but he makes it work in a sense. And I want to say he's a pioneer, because as I mentioned, this is one of the first superhero movie blockbusters. This is the blueprint that laid out what we have today, that laid out the Dark Knight trilogy, maybe not so much the Dark Knight trilogy because it's kind of like its own little thing, but everything you've seen in Marvel, including the MCU, all drew inspiration from this, including the directors. They took certain styles that Richard Donner used, and you feel like you're watching a superhero movie. You kind of leave this film thinking like, wow, like you feel hopeful, which is exactly the feeling that Superman wants to get across to the human race. You feel hopeful when you're watching this.
Exactly. Just an all-around, just great, feel-good movie. And well done, Richard Donner.
Right, yeah, exactly. So once again, Richard Donner, thank you much for gracing us with this, and here's to you.
Cheers. Cinematography! I am so stoked to talk about the cinematography of this film because, holy crap, it's incredible. The cinematographer, his name was Jeffrey Unsworth, and this guy was part of a lot of really big films. He did 1972's Cabaret. Ooh. He did 1968's 2001: A Space Odyssey, and he's done a couple other pretty big name movies. But I think one of the saddest parts about Jeffrey Unsworth is the fact that he died not long before this movie was released, so he never even got to see this. This was the last movie he worked on, or that he completed before he died. So I think he did a really fantastic job, and it's always so sad to hear about someone that played such a big part of the movie that dies before they even get to see it, like Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight. So, for what he did for the cinematography of this film and for the way this film looks and the way the film plays out, I think it's a pretty big tragedy.
Yeah.
But Jeffrey Unsworth did an amazing job with this movie. There's one spot that even kind of plays into the editing of this movie really well, and that's the scene when Superman is doing the interview with Lois, and they go on the whole flight around Metropolis, and they get back and they're on Lois's balcony. There's an over-the-shoulder shot of Christopher Reeve, and he's standing on the edge of the building. He's chatting. They're kind of flirting a little bit.
A little bit.
And
this scene is incredibly sexually heated.
I was trying to be a little bit modest, but yes, it is a very the underlying tones of sexuality.
Way more than sexual sexuality is the underlying tone of
we
that
really
scene.
just watched the Superman porn parody.
Oh man!
No.
When we were watching it the other night, though, I was like,
Oh my, yeah, a lot of
I couldn't
things,
believe it.
A lot of things went way over my head as a kid. Oh my god.
"Oh."
Well, anyway, he's about to fly off, and it's actually a continuous shot of him flying off and her walking back into the apartment to Clark knocking on the door. She opens the door in the same shot, and in walks Christopher Reeve as Clark. And the way they did this for shooting purposes was they shot all of Christopher Reeve's coverage of him talking to her and flying off separately, and then they went back sometime later after they had edited and done all the editing that they needed to do for that part, and shot Margot Kidder watching kind of like a movie screen of Christopher Reeve saying his lines and her responding to him on screen, and then she walks off into the apartment where Christopher Reeve was waiting as Clark Kent. That's how they got that shot, because there's no way that he could go from Superman. Actually, today there's probably a way he can go from Superman to Clark Kent in 25 seconds. But I think that is a really unique editing technique and cinematography kind of like idea of how they got that to work, because I remember always thinking like, wow, that's so cool, because how fast must he have gone to be from Superman to Clark Kent, you know? So I think that's just a really great, I thought that's a scene that really sticks out to me. Plus all the flying scenes, the parts where like, you know, Superman's flying after the nuclear missile and the camera's kind of like set up on his back, which is kind of what I'm talking about when I say you see that in Man of Steel, kind of, you see that POV shot of Superman flying around. And it looks much better because Man of Steel came out in like 2013.
2013, yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, you know, technology has
Improved a little bit.
Improved a little bit.
Tad bit.
But I think they did it. For the limitations of stuff like that at the time, they really magnificently found a way to make it work. And that's why I think this movie is aged really well cinematically.
Right. And, well, I actually think you hit the nail on the head with pretty much everything you just said. I don't have much more to add to that, besides the fact that I think one word comes to mind when I think of the cinematography for this film, and I think it is groundbreaking.
Yep.
Yeah. The fact that if I'm a cinematographer back in 1977, which is probably when pre-production for this film began, and I'm told that, all right, we're going to do this film, we're going to have scenes in space, we're going to have a planet explode, we're going to have a man flying around, we're going to have a man racing a train, we're going to have a man putting together the San Andreas Fault as it's falling apart, we're going to have a man, it's just, I would have been so overwhelmed, I would have done a triple backflip off the Empire State Building.
And have Superman come save him.
Exactly. But it's an absolute incredible achievement what they were able to accomplish with this. And I think that if we didn't have such a talented cinematographer, this film wouldn't have really stood the test of time like it has.
Absolutely. And I'm actually really glad that you kind of brought up the San Andreas Fault scene, because the use of miniatures in this movie, miniature sets, is like, it's huge. I mean, there's they used a lot of miniatures in this movie. You know, all the landscape shots of Krypton was done with miniatures. The spaceship flying away with the planet exploding in the background, that was a miniature set. The San Andreas Fault scene where you see it all fall out and then, you know, be rebuilt, that was miniatures. And they did that with the way they put it back together again, was they pretty much just like ran the film backwards, so it kind of filmed it being reversed in a way,
Right.
which is an age-old cinematography trick. But yeah, I think the use of miniatures in this movie, you know, that really stuck out more to me this time.
Yep. And I'm going to touch on this a little bit more in editing as well. But I like that you brought that up. The use of practical effects, it makes it a lot more difficult to plan these shots, to plan out these these grandeur like flying shots and these massive epic supernatural sequences that we see throughout this film. These days it's a lot easier to get that stuff kind of done with special effects and stuff. Back then, special effects were much more limited. So to plan these shots and to pull them off as he did, I think that I think that shows a lot to the talent and the. I think that speaks a lot to the talent of the cinematographer.
Yeah, not really having any, precedent set for
Right.
how to pull this stuff off.
Yeah.
And they kind of were just like, they probably had like a little bit of an idea of how things were done because they were really talented and smart and knew what they were doing, but they probably just thought a lot on the fly. And they're like, how can we do this? Well, we can do this, and then we can do that, and then we can manufacture it this way.
Right.
And so I think, a lot of ingenuity went into it. as
I
well.
agree. And for anybody who has never been on the set of a film, I think a lot of people don't realize how much improvisation comes along with a lot of shots. And I feel like with this film in particular, there was a lot of that having to be done. I think it was pulled off incredibly well.
Jeffrey Unsworth, may you rest in peace. Thank you for all you've done for cinema, and thank you for Superman.
Sure. And I wish you could see your achievement. Alright, so we're going to talk about editing just an itsy bitsy little bit. This film was edited by Michael Ellis and Stuart Baird. Stuart Baird he's an editor with a little bit of a less catalog than Michael Ellis. He also did Lethal Weapon, that was directed by our good friend Richard Donner. And a few other noteworthy ones, but I really want to touch on Michael Ellis. Now, this guy absolutely, and I feel like this was definitely a team effort between the two of them. This guy, his resume is just outstanding. So he has this. He has, a few other small films, a few you might know, including Lethal Weapon, including a little film called Casino Royale.
Okay, that's news to me.
Including a little film called Skyfall.
Okay, his stock just went up by like 300%.
What about this? His latest film, Tomb Raider. His stock is about the same.
He actually kind of fell a little bit, but not too bad. No.
The fact that this man is still editing films to this day, and that I feel like his crown achievement came just a couple years ago in Skyfall, that speaks, testaments. In fact, I feel like I might even call this film his crown achievement because, as we mentioned before, it says something about putting together a superhero blockbuster like this back in the 1970s.
Oh yeah.
When you're dealing with space, when you're dealing with flying, when you're dealing with explosions, which I feel like the gas station explosion looked like a practical effect.
Yeah, it looks like they. There's no way they could have faked that. They had to have actually done pyro for it.
But when you're dealing with super speed, with fault lines shifting, explosions, outer space, all of this stuff, this is all things that you don't want to hear ever in your life without special effects, at least.
Yeah.
Without incredible special effects. And that's what these two men were working with. They pretty much were dealt a really bad hand for this film. A really bad hand if you're not incredibly talented, which both of these men definitely are. Now, are there points in this movie that I'm thinking, wow, that doesn't look real at all? Sure. It's the 1970s. It's 1978. Can I excuse it? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I did. I will continue to. Michael Ellis and Stuart Baird were not given a lot to work with, and they made a lot out of it, and they laid the groundwork for every superhero film that has came since. So I can't say enough about these guys. I would point out specific moments in the film that I feel like editing really played a huge part and that it kind of drove the film forward, except I feel like that's the entire film. So that's pretty much all I have to say. Props to you guys for nailing sequences on Krypton, for nailing sequences in Kansas, for nailing sequences in space, for nailing sequences in California, for nailing sequences in Metropolis. This was not an easy film to master, and it was done so masterfully.
You know, at the time, you know, green screen was like a relatively new thing. No one had really done special effects. Yes, there had been Star Wars. Yes, there had been 2001: Space Odyssey. But really, most of that stuff was so new and was just now being experimented with. And this was one of the big things that, you know, kind of solidified how things were done.
Right.
Clark Kent falling out of the window and turning into Superman in midair, overlaying those two pieces of film and making it look like a seamless transition. Like, you know, this was still being shot on film, so you had to cut the film at a certain point. And nowadays it's digital, you can overlay the digital files.
And I feel like at least Michael Ellis has shown exactly what he can do with this updated technology.
Exactly.
Skyfall is seamless.
Without a doubt.
Which will definitely break that down.
And of course,
point.
you know, the chase scene at the beginning of Casino Royale.
Right.
Edited magnificently.
One of the best
So,
chase
I
scenes
mean,
in all of cinema.
This guy's done it all for
Right.
sure. So the editing is just, I think, is really well done, and I think really plays a big part to the way this movie works.
Right. And, you know, I kind of feel bad because I don't have much to say about specific moments, but I also think that speaks testament to exactly what they were able to accomplish with,
For sure.
with what they did.
Also, kind of like an ADR post-production note, I think his name is Jeff East, who played young Clark in this movie.
What, like teenage?
Yeah, all of his lines were dubbed over by Christopher Reeve in post-production. So they had Christopher Reeve,
Which I didn't even know. Like, which...
Right.
That's crazy.
Christopher Reeve sat down after they were done filming all of Jeff East's scene as Clark, and he said the lines in perfect conjunction with the way Jeff East said, which is kind of like a no-no today.
Right.
I feel, because
I'm thinking, I'm like, is that necessary? But at the same time,
they did it strictly for continuity, so he didn't sound so different. But I mean, like,
right. Who knows what Jeff E sounds like?
for sure. I mean, I would have bought that his voice had changed in the 5
Right.
years that we
Yeah.
that we miss out between the time he leaves for the North and the time he becomes Superman.
Right.
So I think it's a little unnecessary. I would have been very pissed off if I was in his shoes, but also I understand why they did it. I
Yeah.
don't think it was necessary, but I understand why they did it.
Sure.
But still, I mean, that's really clever editing, because you have to go through the audio tapes, which are actually still tapes at this point, and overlay them with the film tapes, which are also still actually tapes at this point, because digital filing wasn't a thing yet.
And ADR, like today, is super hard to pull off for the actor and for the editor. So the fact that they accomplished that in such a way that I didn't even notice, I think speaks a lot for the talent of these two men.
For
so
sure.
I don't have much more to say about these guys. You got anything?
No, that was about it.
Then shall we raise a toast to Michael Ellis and Stuart Baird? You guys, you laid the groundwork for what we have going on today. So cheers.
Thank you very much.
All right, so we usually do a lot of research on the certain things that we're supposed to cover for this. We're going to talk about writing at this point. There are 5 writers for this film, though, that we don't want to do any injustice, so we kind of have it up on my phone at the moment. The first people we need to give a shout out to Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, who created the character of Superman. Without this, nothing would have been possible. I feel like this is a very accurate representation of exactly what they had in mind as well, as far as character and kind of just the fun story that comes along.
On IMDb, I read that they were both very pleased with the outcome of this film,
Mhm.
which is an exceptionally rare thing when something from one medium, from a writing medium, is adapted into a film. So
The writer of the original written characters is not always completely pleased with what happens on screen.
Stephen King is notorious for being constantly displeased with his
Sure.
movies. So
Right.
I mean, really well done for everyone for making
Yeah.
this something that they can be proud of and happy with.
Yeah, and when it comes to writing superhero films in particular, I mean, you can obviously take a look at the creators and exactly what they started off with back in the day originally. Superman was created in 1937, I want to say. 1938, 1937, 1938, about a year or two before Batman.
Right.
So there was about 40 years of material to write the script based off of. Nowadays, you got about 70 years, 80 years for every single character you're writing. There's a lot of wiggle room with exactly what you're going to do story-wise. I feel like the most important aspect that you need to definitely capture when you're writing a superhero film, though, is the essence of the character itself. And I feel like the screenwriters of this definitely nailed it. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. Especially grabbing the essence of Superman, who is an American icon. You know, everyone knows who Superman is.
Exactly.
So, you know, they really created a lasting character, a character that can, you know, be a classic character and also evolve with time.
Right. Stand the test of time. You can write him many different
also
iterations.
We have, like you said, different iterations. We have, you know, the Red Sun.
Mm-hmm.
We have Kingdom Come Superman. We have Resurrection Superman.
Right.
So,
the Dark Knight Returns versus Superman.
We have, they stemmed the base character of the Superman we all know and love, and from this one, you know, incredible character that they wrote, other equally incredible writers have taken the character into different realms and done different things with it.
And I love a lot of what has been done with Superman. Like, I love taking this character with all these abilities, with all of these powers and stuff, and doing different things with him. Originally, Superman was written as the perfect American.
Yeah.
Almost, in a sense. Like, you take this perfect, innocent, American-raised young man, and that's what he stands for throughout his entire life. But I do love what they did with Red Sun. For those of you who haven't seen Brightburn, definitely check that out, including this guy right here. But yeah, there's a lot of great things that can be done with this character and his abilities. But I feel like what the character originally stood for, this film captured really well. Now, the screenplay was written by 5 different people. Mario Puzo, David Newman, Leslie Newman, Robert Benton, and Tom, I'm going to butcher this, Mankiewicz. Mankiewicz. Something like that. We're going to talk about Mario Puzo, though, because he wrote the story for the film. He's done a few other small, very small, indie, you've never heard of them, I promise you, films. The Godfather, The Godfather Part 2, big deal. The Godfather Part 3.
I've heard of that one.
That's the one.
That's the one you want to watch.
So yeah, Mario Puzo, just an exceptional story writer and a screenplay writer, because there's a huge gap between story writing and screenplay writing. I know that I can write stories really well, I can come up with them really well, but something about putting them into words and writing out all the actions and stuff, that speaks a lot. Mario Puzo did both on this film. Another person we need to talk about is Mr. Robert Benton, who has done 2 other incredibly small films as well. He did a film that didn't win any Oscars called Kramer vs. Kramer. He did a film called Bonnie and Clyde, which is about 2 southern bum...
It's completely fictional.
Asshole. It's completely fictional, and I don't have a roommate that starred in it and loved it more than life itself.
Still chats about it very often to this day.
Never heard of it. My cigar is out again.
Mine is too.
Shout out to not Romeo y Juliet the cigar.
Your lighting quality is lacking.
I don't know why you picked these cigars for tonight, man.
I really don't know why I picked them either. I really fucked it up.
I will say, I'm glad I chose High West and the old, whatever the hell this whiskey is called. So cheers to that.
Yeah, cheers to great cigars and even better rye.
Oh. Now let's talk about the writing. We've talked about the writers. They absolutely killed it. Not a question in the world about that. As I mentioned earlier, this film, to me, personally, feels more like an epic than a story. This kind of feels like those old stories you hear about somebody's the very beginning, the genesis, up and through where they really
become a full-fledged
become a full-fledged character, become one, and have their first full climax and story arc. I just think there's something about seeing where somebody came from and then seeing exactly what they can become despite where they're from, being an alien, being from this distant planet, I think the story of Superman by itself is incredible. First of all, I think it's very hard to write for Superman because he is as powered as he is, and I feel like a lot of people don't really understand the character as it is. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people struggle with writing stories for Superman, which is why the comics over the years have kind of suffered from that, because a lot of people don't know exactly how to challenge him and stuff like that. The way you challenge him is with his heart. The writers of this got that because he's very human.
Yeah, going back to kind of, to the movie part of it, about that struggle that Superman has between interfering with human history and his own personal gain. Superman throughout the entire movie, one of the things that defines Superman as a character is he knows for a fact what is right and what is wrong. It is a very simple yes, no, black and white decision for Superman. Whereas in this movie, they really do explore, internal struggle, which is something that up until that point, Superman had never really had to deal with. He just did the right thing, and it was a very, I don't mean this in a bad way at all. I don't mean this as like a disparaging remark. It was kind of one-dimensional, There was something going on in the world in the Superman comic book, and Superman went and stopped and did the right thing.
Right.
And I think that it really has something to do with saying for like what the time period Superman was created in.
Mm-hmm.
This is well past World War One, right around the beginning of the time that the Nazis took power in Germany, and right in before World War II, and kind of that American ideal that Americans strived for. Patriotic, which Superman is, hopeful, which kind of America is. So really, I think Superman became so popular because of the time that he was created, and it was such an influential time in American history, and what we really needed for morale, especially going into World War II.
Exactly. I feel like that's exactly why he was created as he was. And I feel like, I haven't read many like Golden Age Superman comics. We're both big comic book fans in general, if you couldn't tell by this point. But I feel like this film really explored the human side of Superman, which I think is incredibly important, not only for this story itself, but for the generations to come after this that had to write for Superman. The way to defeat Superman, he has no weaknesses except for inside himself, his heart, and they even address that in the film. So, this cigar sucks ass.
But Superman doesn't.
Exactly. So, to all of the writers of this film, and to the creators of the man himself, the Man of Steel himself, we raise a toast.
Thank you very much for giving us one of the best characters ever written.
Yes, sir. And thank you to the writers of the screenplay for laying the groundwork of superhero films from this on. Cheers. Cheers.
Okay, so now that we've kind of broken down the movie and the parts that we specifically love about it, we're just going to kind of give our overall rating and impression upon our last viewing.
Sure.
Because it was the first time that we had seen the movie in a while. In a number of years for both of us. So I'll let you start off with
Right. So this is a film that I hadn't seen it in at least, I hate to say it, about probably 15 years. It had been about 15 years until I'd seen this, and we watched it the other night. But it's one that we talk about a lot. And I think the reason that we talk about it a lot is not only because of the impact this film has, but because of the impact this film has had on the film industry itself, which is absolutely incredible and magnificent. And I can't help but say positive things about this movie. Do you want me to go give my rating right now, or are we gonna give it together?
We can give it together.
I have mine.
I think I have mine as well.
All right. So 3, 2, 1, 8.5.
I was going to go with 8.0.
8.0?
Flat.
That's fair. The only reason, so I would agree with that if I'm giving this film the rating based on the film alone, which is probably what you did. I just can't help but think exactly where we would be cinematically right now as a society without this film, and exactly the layer of work that it kind of laid out for the rest of people to take advantage from it. And I think that the film itself is incredible.
Right.
I had a great time watching it. We sat down to watch it the other night, and I was like, this film is 2.5 hours long. Like that. We watched the special edition as well, because of course. But it doesn't feel like 2.5 hours, I'll tell you that much. It feels like a really good time, and it feels, as I said, what Superman stands for is hope. You kind of walk away feeling hopeful, especially in times like this. So if you're kind of looking for a little feel-good movie and some hope in these times, go back and watch 1978 Superman. I feel like it's kind of inspiring.
Oh, absolutely. And I gave it an 8 strictly because I think... So the movie is incredible, and I would not have chosen the movie. I would not have chosen this movie if I didn't absolutely love it.
Right.
For what it has done for the movie industry in general, especially for stuff like Marvel. I mean, Marvel would not be Marvel. The MCU would not be the MCU had it not been for Superman. But, you know, even though I think it is an incredible movie all around, you know, I still gotta say there were parts about the movie that I think not necessarily could have been better, but I think there are parts of the movie that had they had a little bit more practice with what they were going to be doing,
Sure.
With the scope of the film and what was available to them, kind of hindered it in terms of like modern movies. But what they had back in the 70s, they did the absolute most they could with, and they really did an excellent job. So I think an 8.0, it just a solid 8.
Yeah,
great.
I would agree with that.
Great rating for the film.
And I would say that this film while it leaves a great impression on the viewer, and it leaves you feeling a certain sort of way, I feel like the impression it left on the industry itself is even greater.
Absolutely.
So
there's nothing wrong with this film at all.
Let's take a toast real quick to Superman.
Alright, what are we talking about next week?
So, next time around, we are going to be discussing a film that he doesn't know what we're talking about yet, so I'm going to give a few hints, kind of, and kind of see how you feel it out. We saw this film together in theaters. There are multiple sequels to this film that we will be talking about, and when the trailer for this film first came out, we both thought it looked like garbage. We thought it looked absolutely awful, but one of our friends wanted to see it for his birthday, so we thought freshman year in college, we might as well swing by and check it out. Do you know what we're talking about?
Yes, sir.
All right. Next time around, we will be talking about John Wick.
Yeah!
I'm so excited for this.
This is one of the ones that I've been excited to talk about.
Yeah. I was on my way home from work today when I decided this. I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot wait. Like, this is one of those films that be expecting a pretty long review for this one, because it's going to be, we're going to have a lot to say about it. We have a lot to talk about on this.
Sweet.
Me and him, if you can't tell, we're cinephiles. But me and him, I mean, like, our entire friendship started with the basis of film.
Yeah.
So we have a ton of films we want to talk about, and I feel like one of the ones at the top of the list that I've been aching to talk about is John Wick.
There's a whole nother level of John Wick cinematically that something that we haven't even broken into yet. And that is,
Yeah, exactly. Because I feel like this week we broke into something new that we wanted to talk about with superhero films. Next week we're going to break into something entirely different. I don't even know if this falls
the
in
level
any
of
certain
physicality that went into the movie.
Woo! Right. Woo! We're going to be talking about we're big fans of like the Raid movies and the Captain America. When it comes to combat, we're suckers for it. And the combat in this film, holy
It's
crap.
I would argue that there has never been a movie besides The Raid, because The Raid did come out before John Wick.
Right.
But there's never been like an American mainstream movie with the amount of stage combat
Yeah.
and dedication to the physicality that John Wick has.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of like a groundbreaking, first of its kind, and especially since 2014 when it was released,
Yeah.
we have seen more
Mhm.
movies like that, like Extraction, which just came out recently.
Which is fantastic,
Which
right?
is fantastic.
And I feel like it introduced a whole new genre of martial arts called gun fu, which is pretty awesome. And I heard about it before. I'm about to go into the entire spiel. I feel like we could, honestly, we're gonna rewatch John Wick soon, but I feel like we could do the entire video right now and just make it easy. But one thing I do want to do is when we watch this, I want to get another opinion. My roommate Briar, I'm holding his dog right now. He hasn't yet to really see John Wick, and it's a movie that we're both incredibly passionate about, and we hope that he's the same way. But maybe we'll get his input next time around. But for now, we're gonna raise after he pours himself just a teeny weeny, and myself. Oh my gosh.
Lula, you want some? Her ears perked up. I think that's a yes.
For now, we shall raise a toast once again to Superman, to Christopher Reeve, to Richard Donner.
Let's have a moment of silence for Chris. And Dana Reeve. His wife passed away a few years after he did. But to you both.
Seriously, raise your toast. Take a moment of silence with us. I think that's good.
Thank you for everything
Thank you.
you have both done. Thank you for Superman. Cheers.
Ugh.
Okay, so join us next week for John Wick. Thanks very much for tuning in. Take care.